Hello everyone, welcome to this new tutorial, and in this tutorial we are going to make this pop-up pull tab surprise box. As you can see, when you pull this tab, it reveals the inside of this box, and it's a fun mechanism to build in a surprise or a reveal. There are many subjects you can build in this and use for this. So this is really a fun mechanism. And the very first version I did for this mechanism is this pop-up spider in a box. And I think I've shared this like maybe 4 years ago on my channel. And this is basically the same technique. I've improved some bits on the design, but it's, as you can see, it's the same mechanism using this ramp. And I also have another example here. It's a bit bigger. You can imagine you can play with the dimensions, with the width, the depth, the height. This one has a bigger reveal, this big spider. And for this box I've kept the back side open. As you can see, it also folds in like a pop-up on the inside. I left the back side open so it uses less space in the cover. So that's also a way to make a smaller cover. The spider inside this box, as you can see, is quite detailed. And I also did a tutorial about this mechanism that uses templates. So you can look that up on my YouTube channel. But today we're going to make the pop-up box. And for this box, this time we're not going to use a template file. So we're going to build this from scratch. And let me get started with explaining the tools and materials we're going to use for this. So no template files, just a couple of sheets of paper. I think maybe 5 or 6 will do for this. This is 80 lb paper, like 200 grams, a little bit more. And for an extra layer for the cover, I'm using 300 grams paper, GSM paper, and this would be probably about maybe 120 lb. So that's just to make the cover a little bit stronger and also to hide this pull tab mechanism that goes through these slots, as you can see. So we're also going to hide that. That's the paper we're going to use. I'm using also artist tape, which I really like to use. And the benefit of artist tape is that you can take it off very carefully without tearing, but it's a great way to make concepts. So artist tape, I'm using double-sided tape without a sheet. It's this package from Scotch, the yellow package. And I'm also using this big double-sided tape from Tesa, and I'm using only this for the double cover. I have a smaller ruler, a cutting ruler, but most of you will have something like this. So we're going to use that for scoring and cutting. I'm also using this geometric triangle, which I think is very useful for quick scoring, and they wear out a bit, so I buy these like once in a month, and those are like 60 cents. So for knives, I'm using this hobby knife that you can break off. I always start my projects with a fresh knife, an X-Acto knife. Please be careful using these. This is also, again, like I always say, not a tutorial for children because we're using knives. I have a pencil, scissors, a mini cutting mat, but you don't have to use this. You can also use some scrap paper. I'm using an eraser, a folding bone, and a scoring pen. And as you can see, this one has a blunt tip. You can use anything that looks like this, as long as it doesn't harm the paper when you make scoring lines. So those are the tools that we're going to need. And because this is quite a build, I'm going to start right away, not wasting any time. Let's see how we begin with setting up the base page, which I'll show you now. And of course, for the base page, we first need to fold this in half. Now I just want to have a very neat fold, tight fold, scoring line, so I'm going to use my scoring pen for that, not just fold it in half, which is maybe fine for thinner paper, but for this type of weight, it's better to do it this way. So that's our cover, and we're going to try to cramp this up into an A4 size paper. The box we're going to make is going to be 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters. I think that's about 8.9 inches, I'm not sure. But the dimensions, you can play with that. So you can follow me with my 10 centimeter box and see what you can do yourself with other dimensions. So, and because we're going to make this, let me draw a line here in the center so you can see the scoring line, the folding line, sorry. There you go. So before we start, we're first going to make the box, the outside of the box, so we can position that on the page and look how that works. So that's step number one. Let's first cut off a strip of paper that is 10 centimeters. I'll do it like this. And throughout this tutorial, maybe I'm working a little bit rough or fast, but that's just to make sure I'm not making a tutorial of 2 hours. So I'm taking out 2 strips of 10 centimeters out of this sheet of paper. No, wait, let me first do the scoring. I can do that in one. So I've marked 10 centimeters here and here. And now I'm also going to do the sides of the cube. So I'm going to mark those two. It's 10 centimeters here, 20, and that's about enough. All right. I'm aligning it on my grid of the cutting mat, which you also need, of course, for making this. One big scoring line. Now I'm going to cut off the strips, and what we will end up with is 2 strips of 10 by 20 centimeters. All right, now I'm going to cut this off. Do the same here. Let's do that precise, like that. Okay, now let's score. Let's fold this score. Do the same here. All right. Now I need an extra score in the middle of one side, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to measure 5 centimeters, the exact half. And like so. Let me align that a little bit better. And when you're making these geometrical shapes and pop-ups, it's always good to make sure that things are straight, that you measure them well, because it won't be a nice cube if it isn't symmetrical. Another 5 centimeters mark. Right there. Going to score that too. All right. So let's fold this one over too. So what we have now is this. Okay. 10 by 20 two scoring lines, one in the center and one in the center of this side. Now, before we're going to glue these together, tape these together, I'm going to make little slits in the center fold. And why I'm doing this is because I want these folds to be as weak as possible. So when the cube folds out, they almost collapse by themselves. So when you have a scoring line, the paper also always has a little bit of tension, and when you cut them in, this almost has no strength at all. So that's a nice way to make it very gentle to use in a pop-up. All right, let's do the same here. That's one. And that's two. Now I'm going to attach these two sides. I'm going to do it like this. So first we get the big surface, then we get the two 5 centimeters, and then again I'm going to connect this part to here. Let's do that. I'm going to use artist tape for that. And also these hinges need to be very lightweight, so I'm not going to add too much tape to it. Just on the tops, so the cube makes nice corners. And let's do 2 in the center. And I'm going to do the same on this side. Let's prepare that. And this is not really a tutorial for beginners. Maybe I should have said that from the start, but if you're not comfortable with what we're doing here, I advise you to go look up some basic tutorials, like the tutorials on the pop-up channel on YouTube. I'll start with some templates. All right, so I've taped the sides together and also used my folding bone to sharpen these tape edges, tape corners. So what you see now is we have this. All right, that's perfect. Now for this cube to find, we have to find a position on the page. So when it folds flat, you can tell that this is the complete length of the cube. And we're going to add a pull tab on the front side. Let's say this is the front side of the pop-up. So what we're going to do is position the cube in a way that this fold just aligns on the edge of the paper. We're going to add a cover that is slightly bigger, like a centimeter surrounding, margin. But for this, we're going to try to fit it just inside this folded A4. What I'm doing now is I lay it flat, align it with the center fold, and I'm going to mark where this fold starts. And that's where we're going to attach the pull tab mechanism. And this cube, we're going to just draw it on the paper. Those will be our guidelines. So I'm going to draw a cube that is 10 by 10 centimeters, a square, sorry. All right. So this is the surface of the cube. It's the surface where this stands on. All right. Now next step will be to prepare the pull tab. Okay, so this is going to be the position of the cube. We're starting off with our pull tab that doesn't have to be any taller than this sheet of paper. So let's first make something that looks like that. And I think I'm going to start with the full width of the cube, which is 10 centimeters. And a scoring line in the center at 5 centimeters. So let's do that. 5 and 10. Cut this off. Yes. Perfect. A scoring line here at the 5 centimeter mark. Folding this over. All right. And when we pull this cube, I want to use the full width of the cube to pull it. And in this model, I haven't done that. As you can see, it's just a centimeter in, and I'm not liking that so much, so I'm going to improve on that. So we're starting off. Let me draw a line here in the center so you can see this. What we also need is pull action. So how long do we want to pull this tab? And when the pull action is too short, it's going to be a very heavy pull and maybe too much stress on the paper. And when it's too long, there won't be any snapping action. So the surprise effect will be less. So my sweet spot for this action, which you can see here, let me point that out. This will be our pull tab action. So when it's flat, it's all over here. And when I pull it, it goes 4 centimeters that way. So when, sorry for the horrible explaining, but we have to go through this for a second. So this is 2 centimeters action this way and that way, so that will add up to 4. So we're going to use 4 as our action for this pull tab, and therefore I need a scoring line of 2 centimeters here. So I'm going to do that. 2 centimeters. Right there. Let's fold that over. And that's what you get. And now I also don't want this pull tab to be 5 centimeters all the way. So let's cut off a centimeter. Make sure it starts at 5 and goes in and ends up at 4. So what I'm doing here is again align it. Put my ruler on top here. All right. Fold this on this side. And I'm going to make a nice inwards shape and just cut it all the way down like that. That's one. Looks like this. Okay. Now we want this pull tab to go through 2 slots. So therefore we need to split this open. So let's do that. I'm going to make both the pull tab strips 3.5 centimeters. So let's start on the same height. There you go. And why we are doing this is because if we're stacking 2 folds on top of each other, the pop-up gets very bulky. It has trouble to fold in. Not so nice. Okay. So now we have our pull tab, and we already know that we're going to attach the action tab on top of here. No, sorry. 2 centimeters below here. Let's mark that. Right, like this. And when it's completely folded in, it should, here's where we're going to attach it, this line. And when it's folded in, it's going to end like this. All right. So now, let's make pull tab slots. So I'm going to use my ruler. The slots, I would like to hide these below the cube. This one we can't hide because that's where the pull tab is coming out, but the other one is just below the cube, here. Hard to see. That's also where we're going to attach the rams. So let's see, the first pull tab slots, those are going to be, no, I'm going to start differently. I will put this on top, in position, fold it in. So, make sure it aligns with the centerfold. And I'm going to trace it, just trace it. The inner line and the outer line, like that. That's better. All right, so let's start with the first slots. Those are going to be here. And just, let me look, just like a centimeter inside the cube, the square mark there. I'll make those double lines so it's easier to see. All right, I'm going to cut these out. I'll do that by hand, and I'm horrible at cutting slots, so let's hope this goes well. Okay, so far so good. Okay, great. Those are the slots. We can now erase our marks. We don't need them anymore. I'm going to keep the contour of the square. All right. Okay, so we end up with something that looks like this. Now let's see, before we attach this and slot it through, I want to make it double layered. And therefore I'm going to decide a couple of things, which is where the pull tab is going to end and where the double layer is going to end. So I'm positioning it, aligning it with the contour of the square. And let's mark this where it ends, so it stays inside the spread. And let's say the double layer won't go any further than this. Right there. Okay. And I also want to have a scoring line just below that double layer. So let's start with that. Going to align it. So the marks for the double layer, I'm going to make these a scoring line. And cutting off the rest. Oh, that's not good. Let's do that again. right. Now we need double layers for this one. It needs to be strong, and therefore I'm going to measure this length till my marks, or the scoring line that I've made there. And that's about, let's say, 12 centimeters, maybe 12.5 centimeters. And also my double layer strips can be any wider than 3 centimeters, as you can see. So 12.5, half by 3, let's do that. Let's see. I need to be a little bit more precise. So first I'm cutting off 2 strips of 3 centimeters, which also can be done different. I just realized, but that's fine. We just need 2 strips, it's not that hard. Right, let's mark the 12.5 centimeter. Let's do it a little bit higher. Right. Almost there. Two strips for the pull tab. I'm going to fold these over just to make sure I'm doing it right. I'm going to put it on the back side using double-sided tape. With lots of cat hair. And nicely align it in the center of the pull tab. I'm just making very sure it's not overlapping the fold on this side or on that side. Let's do the same here. All right. Maybe a little bit more tape. I want this to be at least over the full length covered with tape. I don't care about the sides, as you can see. We just need the length for extra strength. Okay, do the same here. Center it. Not putting it over any folds. Good enough, okay. See, this is maybe still a little bit too tight, but I think it will be fine for now. Good enough, all right. So we need to slot this in. So let's do that. This is always a little bit tricky to do, especially when you have to tuck in these double layers. There they go. All right. Now, let's check if this works. We need to have this action radius, like I told you. So if you connect this with tape and you push it back, you get this motion. But therefore also this pull tab needs to have room to do that. So when I pull it all the way back, it's just maybe 1 millimeter too short, but I think it's maybe just doable. Let me Let's see. All right, I'm going to cut out a little bit more out of the center piece portion using my tiny cutting mat. All right, let's see how that goes. Going to pull it again. First I have to split this screw. I've pulled it out. All right, okay. Now I can put it all the way back here, and as you can see now, I can just put it a little bit forward and position it there. All right, let's do that. So I flip this over the other side, and I want to add tape over the full length of the of the tab, but especially making sure it ends on the edge of the outside of the cube, which is here. Let's do the same here. It's a little bit too short. I'm not taping these down, I'm just holding it like this. So when I now fold it over like this, I have tape there. I can align this top with the shape of our cube. I've pulled them out again. Okay, there you go. All right, push it down. Now I'm pulling it carefully, and this tape also needs to get a little help, as you can see. And maybe I will also push it down a bit with my scoring pen, sorry. There you go. All right, now we have this. This is the base action we're going to use for this technique. All right, that's that. Now, because this is all very bulky, I'm going to also add, let me show that in this model. No, I'm not adding it, I'm going to make an extra layer that stands up. It will be the bottom of the cube, so to say. Okay? And this will be about 3 centimeters. By 10, of course, because our cube is 10. I think I have a piece of scrap here, which is 10. Perfect. So let's cut off a strip of 3 centimeters. Like that. Also make a scoring line in the center at 5 centimeters. This is just distracting. Okay, scoring line at 5. And this is the bottom of our cube. And we're going to attach it like this. Okay, so let's do that. Let me see, what's the best way? I'm going to add tape, make sure it's all the way to the edge here. Do the same here. Okay. Now I'm going to tape this on top of there. Push it down, fold it over, and we have something like this. Okay. And now this all has to fold in, and this gets very bulky also because it's folded over this way. So what I'm going to do is cut out a little triangle just to get some bulk out of this corner. So let me do that. It's just very tiny. And now this corner folds in a little bit nicer. Okay, like that. All right, let me get some water. This starts to look good. Now we have to attach this cube, but before we do that, I'm first going to add a pull tab on here. Let's fold it in completely and measure how much space we have left, which is 3 centimeters. And this should be 8 wide, that's correct. So let's cut off a strip of 8 centimeters. Okay. Eight centimeters by 3. I'm marking this, but of course I could have used my cutting mat. Now I need to cut it off. A little bit distracted. Right, and now I'm going to mark the center of this to make a scoring line. Perfect. There you go. Okay, let's fold this over. And it's also nice to have a bit of a round corner. We're going to do that later. So what we're going to do is glue this down here. And we have a pull tab. See? So I'm going to add some tape on the ends. Let's make sure it's all on the top. One piece of tape just below the scoring line for the pull tab. And this scoring line is there because sometimes it's hard to grab a tab, so you can just take it up a little and operate it, which is nice. Two pieces of tape. Making sure it's not over this fold, of course. Now I'm going to align the center fold of the spread on the page. Make sure this is completely flat. I will put it just a little bit below here. Good for now. Let's cut off this little strip. I'm going to use some scrap paper for that. And give it a round corner. Okay, like that. And we have a pull tab ready. Now, first, before we attach the cube, we need to add the ramps. These two parts. And these act like a V-fold. So anything you, a V-fold, sorry, like a centerfold. So anything you build on top of this, you can use this gap as a fold. So when it's closed and inside the box, it still acts like a pop-up. See, this just barely fits in. So this ramp is a double layer, and I've marked here the sizes here. It's 4x78, but we're going to do this manually. So I need to be sure it's just a little bit below this this edge here, which is like 1 centimeter, and I want to have it in front of the second slot on this here. Okay, just in front of it. So let's do that. Let's first start by making 2 double layered strips of 4 centimeter. I think this length will be enough. There we go. And there's one thing that is very important about double layers, and that's that I really like to use a fold on the edge of the double layer. Why is that? Because when you just glue down 2 layers, it still can bend very easily. And when you add a fold like this, it will be harder to bend. It's much more stiffer because this fold gets in the way. So when you're making double layers to add extra strength, you just make sure you're also using the fold that flaps over the double layer. And sometimes, like with the pull strip, it doesn't matter that much. So for the double layers in this build, we're going to mostly use this technique where you use the fold. Also use the fold to strengthen the strip. Right, now we have one ramp piece. I'm just adding double-sided tape. Folded shut. And there's one double layer. Do the same here. This, by the way, is my favorite tape to work with. It's super fast. It's not really cheap. When you buy it, you can better buy these bigger rolls because the smaller ones are really expensive. All right, our ramp strips. Now let's measure and see how long these strips need to be. All right. Okay, I'm taking my model here. And we're going to first take this position, and when I shut it, I can just stick it in and see. Let's mark it, it's easier. Let's mark it, fold it in. Now I flap it open, and I want this to be 1 centimeter. Let's see, yeah, 1 centimeter here, so it will attach there. Okay. So let's also mark that extra centimeter. There you go. And this ramp should end about, if this is the glue tab, the slot for the pull tab, it should end somewhere here. Okay, so we have this mark, so now we have our length. Let's see how long this is. 7.5 centimeters in this case. Actually, I think I can take out 2 of these. So I shouldn't have had to make 2 strips, but okay. Now let's attach this to the base page. So let's start with, let's see, I don't want them to be close to each other, but just a little bit, with a little bit of room, because As you can see, this also makes the center fold less heavy. When I fold it shut, there's less paper here because we have an open centerfold. I think something like this is nice. I also want to land it on the tab here. So let's do that too. Going to put tape on this side. Right there. Do the same here. Make sure it's straight. Okay. Oh no, I'm making a mistake, sorry. There you go. I need to lay them upside down. I'm gluing it to the wrong tab. So even this is hard for me, but we will get there. Okay. I'm putting them down with the sticky side up. And of course align them with this mark, this top mark. Fold this in. That's how it should be. And now let's glue down these ends. Tape down. And let's see how that works. There's our flipping motion, not bad. Also making sure the tape is nicely connected. This looks good for now. All right. So this is maybe the most complicated part of making this. So now let's attach the cube on top. Let's do that. How shall we start? Let's see. I think I should, let me see. In this model, the back is open, as you can see, which needs to fold open. So it's best to just lay it on the side. Align it with your markings. Hold it. And when I push this down, I can attach, let's see, I can attach this to here. And when I put this flat and shut the card, now let's first add some tape on the inside here. See? Now I shut the card. Make sure this cube is positioned straight. Like so. Okay. Going to tuck in the tape a little bit more, like that. Now let's see what happens. So we have a flipping cube, which is nice. Now I'm also going to add a little bit of tape on the front sides here because there's so much tension here. We're even going to add a double layer on the back side of this part because for this part it's the most heavy to operate this whole system. So let's add those double layers. Let me measure this 4.5 by 2.5 will be enough. Let's do that. Let me find some scrap or new sheet. 4.5 by 2.5. Let's do that. Okay. No need too much strips. Let's cut these off. That's one. That's two. All right. I will add tape over the full length. Maybe I'll just use 2 parts of tape, 2 pieces. So I'm covering the whole layer. Let's glue those in. All I need to take care of, I'm going to put these on the back of this part, and I just don't want to have any of this overlapping this fold. That's the most important part. Let's do it. Carefully align it with the top line. This is good for now. Doing the same here. Alright, now this part won't bend. Now normally we're also going to add a roof on top of this cube. So before I start explaining how the pillar works, let's do that first. And again we need a square of 10 by 10. Okay. I'm marking here 10 centimeters and a 5 because we also need a score there. That's our square. Now I'm going to score it. And also give it this, no, let's first fold it over. I'm going to attach a pillar on this side of the roof, but I'm just going to also add perforations there, just tiny slots. I just want to make this cube as weak as possible, so it falls, basically falls into place. That's our roof. Now, normally a cube with a roof has a pillar in the center, and because we're making an open cube that you can flip open, we only have room for a pillar on this side here, on this flap. So that's what we're going to do. Let's measure how much room we have to work with, because we also cut out a little bit, which is 2.5 centimeters. And let's say I want a pillar of 2.5 centimeters here, 25 millimeters. I'll just make it go a little bit wider here on top, so it has more connection surface to the roof. So that's what we're going to do. This is also going to be a double layer. Our pillar, of course, is going to be 10 centimeters, which is this height. Let's say we start off with, let's see, 2.5. Let's make this 40. Looks good to me. So let's first mark 4 1/8. Cut it off by 8. Scored at 4, which rhymes. Scored at 4. And there you go. I'm going to glue this down. Again, a double layer using the fold for extra strength. Okay. another layer, and because we're only going to use this top part, I'll just add a little bit more tape here on the top. Good enough. Okay. Folded shut. Let's mark that 2.5 centimeters. Right there. Right there. Doing the same trick as I did for the pull tab. The fold is on this line, so on this side. So we're keeping the fold. Now the bigger I make this, the less room there is to build something inside. So let's see, let's start here. I think this is pretty good. Maybe take off a little bit more. All right. There you go. Now I need to attach this strut here in the center, which is a bit tricky. But we can do that, I'm sure. So let's do that here. Start with a little piece of tape there. And I'm just going to position this on the center fold. This looks good. Let's also add a little bit of tape on the other side so it can't peel off or anything. This is a bit of a tedious job, but there you go. There we have our pillar for the roof. Now let's add the rooftop by first attaching it to the pillar like this. Oh, sorry. That was my camera, my tripod. Going to align it nicely, but there's one thing. As you can see, this goes in a little bit. So when I place the roof exactly in alignment with this pillar, it won't go well. So let's use the same distance, roughly. And the more careful you make this, the better the result. As you can see now, it's off just a couple of millimeters, just like here. It's the same distance. Now I'm going to prepare some tape. Let me first shut the card, see how I can glue this in. And it should be something like this. You can tell the pillar isn't working just the way I like it, so let me see what is going on here. Okay, I think for this time I'm not going to be super precise, but okay, so when I fold it shut and I have the roof like this, I can just align the roof here and there. And to tape this down, I'm just going to take some artist tape. Let's start on this side first. So let's put on 2 pieces of tape. Won't need much here. It's just working as a hinge. I fold this over backward. I do the same here. can even use my folding bone carefully to make it sharper. That's one, that's two. Now I have tape on these sides, fold it back, and now I can carefully make sure this edge of the roof connects to one side of the cube. Let me try that. There you go, that's one. Now I'm going to do the same on the other side. Putting two pieces of tape on the edge. Same here. I'll just fold these over. Like so. Now position it. I can tell it's not perfect, but for the sake of this video, it will be good enough. I hope, at least. Let's see how this works. I'm not really happy. I'm going to try to smuggle a bit, just put this in position the way I want it to be. Now let's see what happens when I close it. All right, good enough. Now we have a box that flips open, and that's basically the technique you need to make this card. Now what I'm going to do is, as you can see, it works very fast and snappy. And if you have these gaps here or measurements wrong, you can cut off strips, of course. But I won't bother for now. I'm just going to add the extra covers. So, and which is nice, you can now see that we built our cube totally on top of this outline we decided. So it just works perfectly fine. And also this ramp starts just before the slots. And I really like this mechanism. There's so much you can do. Anyway, let's add an extra cover here. Let's use this big roll of tape for that. And I always say in my tutorials that an extra strong cover also really helps to make your pop-up operate better. And of course it's important to keep this free. Maybe I'll put some tape here just to close it on that edge, but just make sure there's plenty of room surrounding it, so there won't be too much pressure on these pull tabs. Okay, let's do this one. Take the sheets off. And if you have a little bit more time, I would like to try something else for this design, because I've already done two spiders. And of course the explanation question mark for my study. But I would like to try something else, so we can do that together. And I think it would be fun to turn this into a house that flips open. So I'm going to show you how to do that, at least if I get it to work. And when I fail, you already had a useful tutorial, I hope, with this base mechanism. And when you're going to see how I'll use the interior of the cube, you will also see that I need to measure and test how much room I have to work with, because the inside of the cube also has some restrictions. Let's curve that up a little. Great. Okay, that's our double cover. Now I want this to be like 1 centimeter. Let's cut off a little bit more here. Let's see. Okay. I want this cover to completely open. There's just a little strip in the way. And this is a bit tricky, but it will be a bit hard to do. Better, a little bit better. I'll just do it a little bit rough so we can continue. So again, about a centimeter from the edges of the white. So let's mark that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a little mark here, make it visible. Do the same on this side. 1 centimeter. Now I fold it shut. Align this little tiny cutting mark on the cutting mat. Okay. One, doing the same on this side. I just can see the mark right there. Felt my ruler move. Let's try that again. It's a bit hard to do because these pop-ups get a bit bulky while we make them, so. Right, now let's mark 1 centimeter from here. Would be roughly there, somewhere there. Okay. Shut the card, align it. Put my ruler on top. And there you go. That's our pop-up surprise box. That was fun to make, don't you think? So if you leave this back out, it's open on the back, so there's less of a surprise and it's not viewable from all angles. But it will save you some room in the cover. But this just barely fits. Let's fold this in a little. Make sure this folds just a little bit more loose. Okay, that's better. That looks good. Now we can make an interior for this. And for my model, it was this question mark and explanation mark, which are just, as you can see, let me get it better in the picture. It's just a very wide V-fold standing there. And there are 2 surfaces and each character is attached to 1 surface. So let's see how that works. I'm just going to make a white V-fold on top of that. I need to find a little bit of scrap paper. Okay, doesn't matter. Here's one. Let's score this in half. And I don't want this to be too big because It's going to be just the base to keep things up. I think for my model, the maximum height of these characters was 90 millimeters. So I'm going to use that tool here. And that's when you put this in the middle of the ramp, in the center. All right. And to make this a white V-fold in a nice angle, I'm also going to cut off a little angle like that. So let's add some tape. Not on the full inside, because that's the gap here. See? We can only attach this on the sides. And now I can just choose an angle, and I'm eyeballing it because it's hard to build a pop-up on top of such a ramp. So now let's see what happens. This works. Let me show it this way. See? Okay. Alright, now for this to work, there are a couple of things you can do. I like to just cut off the top, it doesn't matter how long it is or tall, and use this base to attach stuff on. So let's say I want to have 2 characters. Just gonna mark that 9 centimeters. Was it 9? 90 millimeters, yes. Alright, roughly. Let's make 2 characters. This is going to be stupid, but it doesn't matter. And someone else here, maybe a little bit taller. It's just a little bit rough, but alright, so I have 2 characters. Let's cut these out. And when I'm drawing, especially this weird sketch, I like to leave a little bit of room surrounding the sketch. Like a little bit of margin. It's 1 character. That's number 2. Now let's add those to the mechanism. Let's put this one here on this side. I'm going to shave off just a little bit more. I just keep hitting my tripod. Okay, just cut off a little bit more. We just need this to attach the pieces to. Start with this person, this character. I just need a little bit of tape here. That's just enough. Let's cut off these feet a little bit more in an angle, so. Like this. Character number 1. Let's do the same with this. Maybe I'll do it this way. Okay. So this whole V-fold base has one big downside, and that is that you can't. It's really hard to make something that is centered up front. So it's always in an angle. So when you have two parts in an angle, it still looks more centered and nice. Let me show how that works. See, now when you look at this from the front, it still has a centered composition. And it also works as a pop-up. Let's close it carefully. See? This fits in. And when I open it, you have these two characters. So what I was thinking is you can also make this a house. So maybe add a roof on top here. And add a roof on top here. So can I quickly show that? Let's do it. Let's make a roof. I'm going to make it just a little bit wider than the 10 centimeters of the cube. So let's say I'm going to make this 12. I'll make a scoring line somewhere in the center, roughly. There you go. Now cut off this little strip we don't need. Also, let's look how this looks as a roof. Could be. Yeah, not bad. Okay, let's do that. This is just an example to show you what you can do with this shape, okay? So, it's not really super exciting, but it's maybe fun to at least give a purpose to this one. I'm going to mark it here. That's where I'm going to attach the roof. There you go. Right. Again, hitting my tripod. I can't remember a tutorial where I've hit my tripod that many times, so I'll look better after it next time. Okay, so I won't need much tape. I just want this roof to stick on the sides, so I'm just taking 2 small pieces. This one. Do the same here. Put them upside down in here. Do the same on this side. Close the roof. Push it down. And we have a pop-up house that flips. See? Now, of course, this one is way too big for the cover. I get that. So you can make this cover bigger. Because this pop-up is really big. So even if you make the cover bigger, it still has a lot of volume compared to the spread. Because we crammed it in so much in this A4 size. And of course, for these front parts, let's also fix that, because we're making a nice pop-up, right? So I'm going to make 2 strips of 5 centimeters. If you're still watching, thank you so much for your patience. I hope this is an interesting video. And I get so many requests for tutorials that I would love to say to everybody how much work it is, but also how hard it can be to make this stuff. And even to explain such a basic idea as, let's first mark this, the height of this roof here. And the lowest part is 10 centimeters, of course. Okay. So, explaining all this takes a lot of time, and there's only one way to do this, and that's by taking all the time you need. And that's sometimes a bit hard, but I'm doing my best. Just leave a comment, let me know what you think, if everything was clear. of course, I would love to see what you make with this. So please tag me on social media. You'll find me as Paper Paul on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. Okay, we have 2 pieces. We're going to fill in this gap to make it a bit more complete as a house. Okay. Not working really precise, but that doesn't matter. Okay, that's one. Almost there. So now we have a pull tab transformation house with maybe a couple, maybe a reveal, maybe a moving cart. So you can also, of course, add decoration to the interior, maybe some furniture, some paintings or windows. You can even make a bit of a roof here on top, so it looks more like a front view of the house. But I think the whole effect of a house, which doesn't fit in the cover, I know, but that you can pull it open and the characters are inside there, is just really another fun example of what you can do with this. So yeah, I'm going to take this off. As you can see, with artist tape, it's just really nice to have these easy removable pieces of tape. Okay. I'll cut this off because I've glued that down very firmly. Okay. And now we're back to this. Alright, that's it. This is how you make the pop-up pull tab surprise cube that you can use to scare someone, maybe to surprise someone, maybe to reveal something. You can even make a house with decorations on the outside, of course. Maybe cut out windows, because that would give you can see a little bit what's going on inside, and when you pull, it gets revealed. So I can talk for hours about this mechanism. It's just a lot of fun. And again, here's the study model with the question marks. I'll do one close-up of the measurements again. And there's pull action of 40 millimeters. And that's it. Okay, I'm gonna wrap this up. Thank you so much for watching. Sorry it took me a little bit long, but I think it's important that you learn it well and also understand why we're doing things. So thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time. And please let me know if you have any questions. Bye bye.